When Benny looks at me, I don't think he sees anything but who I am, and that's very rare to find. He knows when I'm feeling a certain way, and kind of, before I can even let it get to a place where it's unbearable, he has already talked to me through a spiral and protecting myself on multiple reasons. Doing music, working with someone that's kind of, like, oh, I don't know if I should do that. But I genuinely it just happened. I think when you know, and oh, that's so cheesy to say, but when you do know, it feels right. That's what happened to me, and I just felt very comfortable with it.
Selena Gomez made it clear that she has grown increasingly frustrated with being constantly tied to Justin Bieber, explaining in a candid interview with Elle that despite the time that has passed since their breakup, the public conversation refuses to move on, and she expressed that she is simply tired of the ongoing narrative that keeps bringing their past relationship back into focus, emphasizing that it no longer reflects where she is in her life today, as she recalled how their relationship first became public in 2011, quickly turning into one of the most talked about young celebrity romances at the time, before they went their separate ways the following year, only to briefly reconnect in 2013, a period that reignited both media attention and fan speculation, even though they ultimately chose different paths again. And while many continue to revisit that chapter, she shared that the reality between them now is far less dramatic than what people often imagine, noting that although they are no longer romantically involved, there remains a sense of genuine care and mutual respect between them, and she openly admitted that she will always support him and that love, in a broader and more mature sense, has not completely disappeared, adding that their shared history of growing up in the spotlight together created a bond that is difficult to fully erase, even if their romantic connection has ended, and she pointed out that much of the public fascination tends to exaggerate the emotional intensity of what they went through, explaining that at the end of the day, they were very young, not married, and simply navigating life and relationships under extraordinary pressure, something that naturally came with challenges but did not need to be turned into an ongoing spectacle. And she stressed that there is a level of respect that still exists between them, describing it as something healthy rather than complicated or unresolved, which contrasts sharply with the dramatic narratives often pushed online. And as she continued reflecting on that period, she revealed a deeply personal moment that marked a turning point for her emotionally, recalling her performance at the American Music Awards where she sang "The Heart Wants What It Wants," a song that had already been widely associated with her relationship, and she described how, in the moments leading up to that performance, she felt completely overwhelmed by the constant attention on her personal life, explaining that it seemed like every conversation, every headline, and every question circled back to the same topic, leaving her emotionally drained and eager to reclaim her narrative. And she shared that as she stood on stage and delivered the performance, the emotions she had been carrying finally surfaced, leading to a visibly tearful ending that resonated deeply with audiences. But for her, it was more than just a performance. It was a declaration, a conscious decision to close that chapter publicly. And internally, and right after that moment, she told herself that she wanted it to be the last time she would have to address that relationship in such a direct and emotional way, expressing a desire to acknowledge her feelings once and then move forward without being pulled back into the same story repeatedly. And she admitted that at the time she felt devastated, as though that relationship had been one of the only things anchoring her emotionally, which made the process of letting go even more difficult. Yet she also recognized that holding on to it would prevent her from growing. So she made a deliberate choice to move on, and that decision became a defining step in her personal journey, marking the beginning of a new phase where she could focus on herself rather than the expectations or assumptions placed on her by others. And if you're enjoying this story so far, tap subscribe quickly for more, because what she shared next adds another layer to her perspective, as she briefly addressed her connection with Zedd, confirming that there had indeed been something between them during the time they collaborated on "I Want You to Know," though she kept the details light and did not frame it as a deeply serious relationship, instead suggesting that it was a moment in her life where she was exploring connections without the pressure of long-term commitment. And she made it clear that at that point, she was content with not being involved in anything too serious, choosing instead to focus on her own growth and independence, which represented a shift from the earlier years of her career where her relationships often became defining headlines. And despite her efforts to move forward, the question that continues to follow her remains the same. whether there is any possibility of rekindling her romance with Bieber, and when that question was raised again, she reportedly reacted with a mix of surprise and amusement, laughing as she responded that she genuinely does not know what the future holds, a response that neither confirmed nor denied anything but instead reinforced her desire to live in the present rather than revisiting the past or speculating about what could happen. And that moment captured the essence of her current mindset, one that prioritizes personal clarity over public expectation. And before we get to the final takeaway, make sure you subscribe for more stories like this, because her perspective highlights a broader reality about growing up in the spotlight, where personal experiences are often magnified and replayed long after they have ended. And throughout the conversation, she consistently returned to the idea that while she understands the curiosity surrounding her past, she hopes people can eventually respect the fact that she has moved on, and that her identity should not remain tied to a relationship that ended years ago. And she emphasized that she is in a different place now, both emotionally and professionally, and that continuing to revisit that chapter does not reflect the person she has become. And as she spoke, it became clear that her frustration is not rooted in negativity toward Bieber, but rather in the way their story continues to overshadow her individual journey. And she expressed a desire for the narrative to evolve, allowing her to be seen for who she is today rather than who she was during that highly publicized relationship. And she acknowledged that while fans may feel connected to that story, it is ultimately a part of her past that she has worked hard to move beyond. And she hopes that by speaking openly about it, people might begin to shift their focus as well, recognizing her growth and respecting her boundaries. And as the interview came to a close, her words carried a sense of calm determination, reflecting someone who has come to terms with her experiences and is ready to continue moving forward without being defined by them. And that final note serves as a reminder that behind every headline is a real person navigating change, growth, and the challenge of letting go, especially when the world refuses to do the same. And her story continues, not as a continuation of an old romance, but as an ongoing journey of self-discovery, resilience, and the effort to reclaim her own narrative in an environment that often resists change. And that is exactly where she stands now, focused, grounded, and ready to leave the past where it belongs while embracing everything that comes next.